Earlier you said that we do not know, but Allah knows whatever the good things happen. We do not know whether it is good, but Allah knows. Or when bad things happen, we do not know whether it is bad, Allah knows. So, would we be able to know when certain things happen in our life? If the things happen, whether it's good or not? Would we be able to gain or have insight whether these things are good or bad?
Yeah, there are a few things that would help us, and then there are usually when things happen, if people approach it with piety, they would usually have khawatir that would actually tell them exactly why what happened. Khawatir means actually voices in your mind that would tell you exactly why what happened. And there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks to the heart of every, one narration says every believer, one narration says every person. It's just that people who are more attuned is like any other training. If you're trained to listen to it, then you can detect it very fast. Other people who are not trained may not be able to detect it. So that's usually one way. But in general, we have certain measures of, I tend to be long with it. Let me just go back. Good and bad are judgments. This is very important to understand. Good and bad, these are two judgments. Right? Judgment in the sense that we're saying X is Y. In logic, if I say, or anything, if I say this thing is black, so I'm giving a predicate. This thing is predicated with the color black. Me calling this black has to come from some place. If I just imagine it, then it's not real. It must be something that gives it some reality. In the case of the example that I'm giving, the thing that gives us this reality is a common acknowledgement by all people that this color is black, and then it goes back to why black is called black. But the idea is once I say this, people can look at it and they can falsify the claim or they can agree with the claim. But the falsification and the agreement has to be based on something that is real and everybody can agree on. But if I just come up with some other word that nobody ever heard, then nobody can either agree or disagree. Or maybe they can disagree. Most likely not, because they didn't even know what I'm saying. If I just say this thing is and I just come up with a word, you can't say yes or no. You don't even know what the word means. I just made it up. The most you can say is perhaps, maybe, I don't know what that thing means. So there must be a way. So good and bad are like that. We say X is good. So I'm attaching the judgment of being good, yani goodness, to a thing. So now we have to ask, where is that judgment coming from? So judgments, according to Islamic Aqidah, judgment comes from three places. There are three types of judgments. There are normative judgments, there are religious judgments, and there are rational judgments. A normative judgment would be something like, if you eat, you satisfy hunger. That's a judgment. If I says food removes hunger, eating food removes hunger, somebody say, where do you get that from? Well, that's a normative law. Water wets. It's a normative law. Fire burns. It's a normative law. A rational judgment would be something is possible, impossible. If I say it is impossible for a single thing to be both living and dead at the exact same time, that's a judgment. Somebody say, where in the world are you coming from? So that's just rational. The meaning of dead contradicts the meaning of alive. The meaning of alive contradicts the meaning of dead. And so something cannot be in the exact same instant, both living and dead at the same time. It cannot be black and white at the exact same time. It cannot be, a square cannot be a circle at the exact same time, because circularity necessitates that it doesn't have edges. And being square necessitates that it has edges. It is a natural, rational contradiction. A part of something must be smaller than the whole if it fits into something. That's just a rash. So it's either normative or it's rational. Or it's religious. We say fasting is wajib. Rationally, is fasting wajib? No. Could be, it could not be. Normative, is fasting necessary? So many human beings survive without ever fasting a day in their lives. So it's not. So what makes it wajib? Well, religion. Religion said it's wajib. So now when we say something is good, it can either be a religious judgment, like prayer. Prayer is good. Giving sadaqah is good. How do you know that? Philosophers argue about that, whether giving is good or not. Economists argue about that, whether charity is good for the economy of a society or not. But when they're coming up with their judgments, what are they using to give that judgment? So for Muslims, we'll say yes on both examples. Why? Because religiously, we are told that these things are good. So the judgment comes from where? The religion. Now, when we say sickness, somebody got any cancer, may Allah protect us. So now the question is that good or not? Well, where am I going to get the answer? How do I apply that judgment? The word good can apply to something where naturally people are repelled from it. If you take people across culture, across the world, different places, if you find naturally all human beings are disinclined towards something, then it is fair to say that all human beings consider that thing bad. Right? Like sickness. If we say that all human beings in the world recognize something as being good relative to its opposite, then it's fair to say this is a good thing. If all human beings in the world say knowledge relative to ignorance is good, then that's good. So in those senses, if we use the word good, in that sense, then we can say that sickness is bad. Why? Because naturally human beings are not inclined to being sick, and they're inclined to the opposite. So from that perspective, somebody say, we acknowledge that it's bad. From that perspective only. Ultimately, in the akhirah, is it good? Or is it bad? But how do we apply that judgment? In that perspective, from that regard is where we say, Allahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamu. It's just a matter of what are we using, and what perspective are we using to apply the predicate good or bad. So when I predicate sickness as goodness, with goodness or badness, what perspective am I using? So if we just use the natural, human beings are not inclined to being sick. When you're sick, it's painful. That aspect we say, yeah, it's bad. Is it bad for me? So sickness by itself, a person being sick is bad. If I got sick now, say, is my particular sickness in this moment for me? Not sickness as a concept. For me, right now, my particular sickness. Is this good for me or bad for me? Allahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lam. Could be good. The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer is not pricked by a thorn except that he's forgiven by Allah Azza wa Jal. If that's being pricked by a thorn, imagine cancer. Right? Most people, most Muslims, if not all, would never be, if they're awake for 18 hours, 16 hours in the day, wouldn't be making istighfar for 16 hours in the day. Would they? The most pious person any of you know, would they ever istighfar 16 hours straight? If you're in pain for cancer for 16 hours straight, then you're being forgiveness for 16 hours straight. And that's just awake. When you're sick, your cancer doesn't go away when you're asleep. So it's like 24 hours, 7 days a week, a person is being forgiven by Allah Azza wa Jal, once they accept it and they put that in their minds. So that person needs to ask, for me, is this thing good? Yeah, khair. God knows what I'd be doing if I wasn't sick. Right? If people had the strength, if my arm is broken, and before I broke my arm, I used to punch people and all that, then the broken arm is good. I used to beat people back. I didn't say I used to. It's on the camera, you just cut that little piece. I used to beat people. The broken arm is good for that person. The only thing that stopped him from accumulating sin of hitting people is that he got a broken arm. So it might be good. It might be better for you. It might be better for you. So the ulama, some of the ulama, they wrote books on the benefits of being sick. Like volume, a thick book on the benefits of being sick. As opposed to it. One of the benefits of being sick is that a sick person is fi ma'iyyatillah. Ma'iyya means Allah, in the Quran Allah says He's with the people of sabr. In the hadith the Prophet ﷺ says that if you, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, a person will be brought to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah would say that I was sick and you didn't visit me. And the person said, how can you be sick? You're Lord of the worlds. And Allah said, you know my servant so-and-so was sick. If you visited him, you would have found me there. It means Allah is with the sick. Not physically, because Allah has no physicality, but whatever ma'iyya means, He's with them. But that same description is not said of the healthy person. So a sick person is closer to Allah Azza wa Jal if they accept the qadr of Allah and they are in a good hal with Allah, then they're closer to Allah Azza wa Jal than somebody with health. It causes people to make dua. Healthy people don't make as much dua as sick people. Right? And every time you're making dua, you're in ibadah. You're with Allah Azza wa Jal in ibadah. So while your healthy friends are playing and shopping at the mall and forgetting Allah Azza wa Jal, the sick person is making dua, is in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are many things. So it might be better for you. It might be way better for you. Poverty might be better for you. The poor enters Jannah 70 years before the rich. Again, if they accept it, it's not just by being poor and wicked means you can enter Jannah. But the idea is that these things they're worldly states. And however we respond to them determines what they are. If you respond to them, if somebody is afflicted by something, they respond with being bitter with God, and they start to have disbelief, and they start to question why would good things happen to bad things happen to good people. The assumption that they're a good person is very telling. But all of that. So if they respond that way, then it's bad for you here, it's bad for you there. If you respond good with the qadr of Allah, please, pleasure, rida. We have pleasure with the qadr of Allah. Then it's good. It might be bad here in the sense that ease is always preferable. So in that sense it's bad. In only the sense that human beings want ease more than pain. But beyond that, in what is it doing for your akhirah, it might be good here and may be good in the akhirah. So Allahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamu. That's why you submit to the qadr of Allah. Just submit to the qadr of Allah. Also, hardship is for the pious. The Prophet says, نَحْنُ مَعَاشِرَ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً. The Prophet said the prophets are the worst people who are tested. They go through the worst trial. ثُمَّ الصَّالِحُونَ, and then the righteous. فَأَمْثَلَهُمْ. And then it goes down in rank. The more pious you are, the more afflictions you're going to have. The less pious you have, then the least. Because of all the benefits that we just mentioned. It brings people to Allah Azza wa Jal. Sickness brings people to Allah Azza wa Jal. Hardship brings people to Allah Azza wa Jal. One of the other benefits some of the ulama mention is that if you're comfortable here, who wants to leave where they're comfortable to go to some place that is not comfortable? Man radiya liqa Allah, or man ahabba liqa Allah, ahabba Allahu liqa'ah. Whoever wants to meet Allah, Allah wants to meet them. Who is going to want to meet Allah if everything here is comfortable? So one of the hikmah in hardships in the dunya is that if Allah loves you, He causes you not to want to be here. How does He do it? Things got to be shaken up. Take away your money, take away your kids. You don't want to be here. You want to go back. So it severs the connection to dunya. A lot of comfort and ease creates connection to the dunya. This is why, anyway, I'll just keep going. But one thing to parents, this is why don't give your kids too much dunya.